Hey, it's Ray from Sober Without God. And last time we talked about sadness and alcohol. And I didn't have a script. I just got on because I was sad. And so this time I'm not sad, but I don't have a script this time either. I just want to talk about sadness and religion and some thoughts that came to my mind. And yeah, people get sad. And I remember, of course, I grew up fundamentalist Southern Baptist, and I had depression. I remember when I served as a pastor, I had a lot of sad times. And I remember, of course, the injunctions of scripture, you know, to rejoice in the Lord always. And, being told that Paul was likely a person who had high anxiety, and Peter probably had some anxiety and some symptoms of depression, and that the Lord himself in a lot of the Psalms identified with the person. David says, "You keep my tears in your bottle." There's many passages in the Psalms where, and of course, when God talks to Israel, where it says that He's with you and He comforts you. He knows your trouble. Jesus said, um, had the saying about the sparrow that, if He cares for the sparrow, then He cares for you. And that's a common verse that's brought up when someone has anxiety. And all those passages are places you can go if you're a believer and you want to find comfort. And I would find a little bit of comfort knowing that there was a what I believe to be a deity at the time, watching over me. And then at the same time, you always have this knowledge of, why didn't this deity see this catastrophe coming, and why couldn't this deity have protected me from this trouble in the first place? Of course, that goes back to the problem of evil, and that's not what this video is about. Um, but why isn't this deity here manifesting itself? And why isn't this deity right here close to me? And of course, that's when people will say, well, if I had still been a pastor, I would say, well, that's what prayer is for. That is what the word is there for. And that is why you need to turn to God in times of trouble. And people always say, this too shall pass, which is not even in scripture. But those are the things you need to do when you're sad, you know. And sadness, like I said before, is okay. It's okay to be sad. It's normal to be sad. Um, it's okay to be sad about the death of a loved one, but it's interesting too. This is just kind of admission on my part, but I did a lot of funerals, and I don't know how to express this thought clearly, except to say that I enjoyed the feeling I got being able to comfort people at the time of a funeral. Um, because I've had so much grief in my life as well, knowing that the best thing you can do for a person when they're sad or grieving, it's not so much what you say, it's being there for them and knowing how to express your presence with them. And I think, bringing to mind, that's what probably one of the things that is lacking for me in religion is there's no presence. There's no real presence. Prayer often left me feeling empty because who was I talking to? And my mother would always express to me that she would receive answers and she would write down a conversation she had with God. I never had a conversation with God. I never, it was a one way conversation. It was me expressing things to God about grief or sorrow or thanksgiving, but there was no two-way conversation being had. And someone expressed to me recently, in the atheist community, that what prayer actually is meditation. And so there is some usefulness in it, whether the believer understands it or not. It's a time of inner reflection and meditation. So it's actually doing some good, whether you realize it or not. And that's where I find peace now when I'm sad, is quiet time and meditation. So there is some good that comes out of prayer for a believer, whether they realize they're talking to something that exists or something that doesn't. And something I can do now, I can do yoga. I can do meditation. I can do mindfulness. Just taking time out of my day when I'm sad or depressed or anxious to focus in on myself. Because really, that's where answers are coming from when you're sad. It's not from some invisible deity who has things written down from a book that was written thousands of years ago. I mean, there may be passages in there that are inspirational for you, or, can get your mojo going in a time of crisis or in a time of need. But really, for me, I know in my life, what gets me going is taking that time, that extra moment to quiet my heart down and quiet my mind down and say, hey, you've got this. And if I need extra help, to reach out to a community and say, hey, I'm not feeling so well. I'm sad. I'm going through this moment. Or take time like I did in the last video. And if no one's absolutely available, take a minute and talk through some of the things you're going through, or write them down for the next time you talk to a therapist or a counselor or a medical professional, and say, talk to someone with some experience who's going to have a two-way conversation with you instead of having a one-way conversation with someone you're not sure is out there. But religion served a purpose for the time that it was around, and serves a purpose for a lot of people until they can get out of that system. And it served a purpose for me for a long stretch of my life until I understood that it was bereft of hope. And once I made that realization, that's when I was able to get some real help and move beyond some of the issues that I had for so long. Anyway, I hope that helped today, talking about some sadness, how to cope with things beyond religion. And I will see you next time on Sober Without God.